Hi there, welcome back to the Dylan Rounds case. Breaking news has come in recently regarding Dylan's body being found and recovered. Today I want to present to you the news articles, the official post from the Facebook page, so we can learn a bit more about it, on how things followed out through this shocking, unexpected event. Now, it does tie in with my prediction of being correct. I did get it right. It was many months back now. I mentioned that even though you're anticipating for Dylan to be found, it's when you least expect it, and it will shock you. It will be a surprise. It'll be unexpected, and that's what's happened recently. And Brenner has played a role within it all. More details shortly when we look at the news articles. Welcome to those that are currently here in this live premiere. Feel free to share your thoughts, opinions, reactions in the live chat box. And in general, you got any comments, questions, leave them down below under this video. Down below, you'll find a pinned comment by me with some additional links if you wish to check that out. And if you want to catch up on the last video that I did to do with the Kenny Veach missing person mystery case, some critical discussions and eye-opening topics to do with the M Cave, click top right corner of the screen where the eye symbol is, and you'll be able to follow through with that. So I just want to give you a very, very small backstory before we get straight on into this video, okay? So this breaking news came out regarding Dylan's body being found as of yesterday, Tuesday, right? But due to the time zone difference, at the time of when it was announced, I was asleep. Take in mind, I'm from the UK, about 6-8 hours ahead of the US, depending what state people are from. So upon waking up this morning, I saw some notifications, I saw some comments which were spammed all over, but it was good of people to let me know about it. I probably would have come across it myself if it's all out there, but it is helpful of other people. And today I just want to give you my thoughts on the situation, because there are some critical analytical points to be made considering what's happened in the past, the attitudes of some too, we need to take a look at. As for very specific details of the location of the body where Dylan was found, it was within Lucin, Utah, but a true location or coordinates haven't been given at this moment in time. Maybe later on things could develop and there could be new leads or just like new bits of perspectives to add on so you get a full picture. But with this being quite recent raw news, you're not going to know everything all at once. As well, the family as well have got questions too, supposedly. I think the best place to start today is to look back at the Find Dylan Rounds Legacy Facebook page to see the official announcement there with some key bullet points. Then we can transfer over to the East Idaho News group because of their coverage on the case and their stability and focus, such as Nate Eaton, who's done a good job on the case covering it, unlike other people out there in the community, etc. And then we can revert back to a community post that I made in recent time, and then some add-on discussion points. So make sure not to go anywhere. Feel free to stick around, share your thoughts, and let's get into this breaking news. Here we are on screen, the Facebook page. Scroll on down. Should come up here 12 hours ago, posted by Jasmia, the, I think, admin of this Facebook group, saying Dylan's body has been located today as part of a plea deal with James Brenner, led police to Dylan's remains. I know there'll be many questions because Dylan's family has them as well. This is all we know for now. The family appreciates everyone's condolences and support. Please allow them time to process this new information and do not contact them directly. You are welcome to add your comments to this post or post them individually. I will approve those in a little while. And then there's an article there, which we'll get onto in a second. And there's a little graphics there. Breaking news, body of Dylan Rounds has been found. Now, it's interesting when you look at this because in the past, there was a range of people with time that kind of doubted that Dylan would ever be found. And look where we're at now. So it's worth taking that into consideration. I think the last time when the family needed time to process stuff was probably March 3rd, 2023, when Brenner was first charged with the murder and the desecration of Dylan's body. So with this coming around, obviously this being more harder hitting and even more important. But it is interesting how it does say that Dylan's family do have many questions themselves. So it seems like there is kind of unfinished business, and there is still truth or information out there which may be pending with time. Of course, the Dylan Rounds search is the case in general officially has been very quiet for some time now, but probably for the best with how things have been conducted in the background, and hence why we're here to this day. So that was 12 hours ago. Yeah, there is quite a few comments, over 400. It'll probably take too long to get through all of them. It'll be people, sending their prayers, their wishes, and all the positive messages. But now, let's get on to the official news information to learn a little bit more about how this event played out by Nate Eaton on East Idaho News. The official article reads, "Body of Dylan Rounds found in remote Utah desert, family says." It was published at 6 p.m. April 9th, 2024, and updated at 9:20 p.m. April 9th, 2024. So I said, I was asleep around that time due to the time zone difference, hence why I only found out the following morning. I just wanted to do this video right now, just so other people are aware and, finish what one started, I guess. So you can tell by the title here, it's not specific because, as I said, the true location has not been given yet. There's some alternative talk in the background, but we'll get to that later. Body of Dylan Rounds found in remote Utah desert, family says. There is a video there by Nate Eaton if you want to check it out on YouTube. But we'll look at the script down below. I think there's a few adverts, hence why it's a bit bland in areas. Dylan Rounds, courtesy of Candice Cooley. I guess that's a photo credit. Here we go. Lucin, Utah. The body of Dylan Rounds, a man from eastern Idaho who has been missing for nearly 2 years, was recovered Tuesday morning in a remote part of northern Utah near the Nevada line, according to his family. So when reading that, as for the location, Lucin, Utah, of all places, considering it's been searched for so long and only now Dylan's body's been found, it kind of puts into perspective of how vast and remote the area really is. But it does also make you question the area where Dylan's body was found. I assume it was never searched beforehand, because they did. They may have found it. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just basing off how it's worded here. The same that it's part of the northern Utah near the Nevada line. So the border going into Montello. How far away, though, from that? Because as we know, when they've given locations, details in the past, it's not always been that specific. Sometimes terms are used kind of loosely. As I said, I'm not too sure if I can do a map analysis today because we don't have the true location, but if we need to take a look, we can. Now, Rounds disappeared from his farm. So this is like the original story, I guess. Disappeared from his farm in the desert town of Lucin, Utah over Memorial Day weekend 2022. 19-year-old at the time spoke with his grandmother, Karen Rounds, on the phone before vanished and was never heard from again. His family has spent the past 2 years searching for answers. Now, take in mind, on the day Dylan spoke with his grandmother, that was the 28th of May 2022 at around 6:51 a.m. near the gate of the Grainshed property where Brenner was living / supposedly squatting at. Dylan made a call to his grandmother to let her know that he needed to park his grain truck in the grain shed because rain was coming on in. He needed to protect his seed, and he promised that he would call her back afterwards to give updates. That never happened. Due to the radio silence, grandmother got concerned. Karen ended up contacting Don Hatley, an individual that had worked for Dylan previously and has been in the presence of Dylan and is good friends with Brenner. Don and Brenner supposedly searching for Dylan on the 29th by the request of the grandmother, Karen. No results were yielded. And then on the 30th, when the whole family, the Rounds family, Cooley, came to that consensus that none of them have heard anything from Dylan, pure radio silence, something was wrong. Hence why the parents went on down the 30th of May 2022. And on the day Dylan was reported as missing. And after nearly 2 years on, he's been found now. In terms of the outcome, you can say it's a positive outcome because for a length of time, that realization came in that Dylan is not alive, that he's been murdered, and that's why charges were put onto Brenner, right? So with coming round to understanding that, despite it being saddening news, now the one thing that was hope for was to be able to bring Dylan home for that closure, and that's what's been able to happen, okay? So it is somewhat positive news in a way, okay? We've got a quote here, I guess, by Candice Cooley saying, "We thank everyone for their support and love." Candice Cooley, Round's mother, tells East Idaho News, "We are grateful. We now have Dylan's body and can bring him home as we continue our fight for justice." So Dylan Round's legacy continues on, but they do get that closure, which will help the family. It'll still be upsetting for them, but it does help. And in the long term, it might even act as like a booster of energy, morale to keep on fighting, and as well spreading Dylan's name, the case, and helping other families out that are going through a similar situation. Okay? So positives can come from this. As for the court case with Brenner, that will be interesting to see. Now, down below, it just gives some backstory. James Brenner, charged with aggravated murder, desecration of a human body, so burying Dylan, reburying possibly, in connection to Dylan Round's death. He led, so this is where the key part is, so make sure you're listening. James Brenner, in recent time, led authorities to the location of the young man's burial site Tuesday morning as part of a plea agreement. Cooley says, family members were told around 11 a.m. that skeletal remains had been found and authorities believe they are Rounds. So they're not saying 100%, but the majority consensus is it is Dylan Rounds. I'm sure it'll be reinforced shortly. Maybe it has already been reinforced by the time of me making this video. In quotes, the FBI assisted the Box Elder County Sheriff's Office by processing the area for evidence and recovering the remains. The remains are in the possession of the Utah Office of the Medical Examiner for confirmation of identity. Box Elder County Sheriff's Office posted in a statement on Facebook, in quotes, "Our hearts go out to the family of Dylan Rounds. We offer our sincerest condolences for the loss of their family member. We understand that the pain of their loss is immeasurable, and we want to express our deepest sympathies to them. It's our hope that they can find peace moving forwards." Arguably, they could have found peace moving forwards earlier on if the LE were a little bit more competent and some of the things just, action was taken sooner and Brenner was taken in quicker, and if Brenner was willing to open up sooner, it would have been shorter term. But it's interesting, quite a lot of people weren't expecting Brenner to talk or to confess for a deal to be made, and yet it's happened in recent time. We can look back at it shortly, that. There's a photo of Brenner from one of his previous appearances in court. I think that was Brigham City. Brenner has been in Box County Jail since being arrested on firearm violations, separate ones. In June 2022, he was squatting on a property near Rounds Farm when the young man disappeared, authorities said. Brenner was squatting not on Dylan's farm, but at the Grainshed property 5 miles away from Dylan's farm. So that appears to be it there. Okay. So there are quite a few things to talk about and to try and put into perspective. Let me know what you're most shocked about. Dylan being found, his remains, or Brenner willing to open up and reveal the location. What are the factors in the background for it to happen now when it could have happened back then? And with what we have heard of back then, why has it only happened now? It's just a few things to look at. So, as I said, with Dylan Rounds being found now because of Brenner, as I said, Brenner was the key to unlock the mystery of Dylan's location, right? I predicted that, I said that back then. Obviously, others out there in the community so insistent on Brenner being truly innocent and completely clean. Look where that went. Exactly. For Brenner to know the location of where Dylan's at, we pretty much say Brenner was responsible for at least disposing of Dylan, right? So it'll be interesting to see all those doubters and people within the case, those wretched humans with time within the YouTube streets true crime community, where they're all at now. it's very quiet these days. Of course, it'll be interesting onwards if more information comes out about the case and if anything else is cleared up along the way to type those loose ends, because to be honest, there's been nothing short but a disaster when it comes to the community side. I guess the case within has strengthened and improved. And to be honest, from 2023 onwards up to 24, it was a lot silent within the case. We didn't hear as much, not as much publicly was talked about, and it's probably for the best at the time with the developments happening. The last thing that I remember hearing about, which was quite critical, at least from my memory, was in 2023, coming towards the end of the year, where Candice Cooley did a highlight, basically thanking the K9 unit that is it called non-profit organisation, volunteer team or so, yeah, something like that, volunteering out there, helping with the Dylan Rounds case, 2 verified alerts by the dogs in 2 different locations, but on top of that, along the way, supposedly 2 separate pieces of DNA evidence found. It's not been talked about since, there's been no clarity, but could that DNA evidence have linked on with Brenner opening up in recent time? I wonder, maybe when the court case comes to trial, some of that extra DNA evidence that was found in 2023 onwards, maybe revealed publicly, we might hear about it and see how significant it really was. So there's that. 2024 went much quieter, but I guess the factor of wintertime not being as bad as it was the year before, where it dragged over and it lasted for quite some time, it did impact the beginning start of 2023, because searches couldn't be conducted out there with it being very harsh, cold, bleak, ground being hard, getting stuck in snow. It just wasn't practical. But as of 2024, there's not been as many delays. As people said, locals, weather isn't as bad. There's snow in the peaks, mountains, but lower ground, it's reasonable. And considering with what's happened in recent time, weather being okay, I guess that's also enabled for Brenner to go out there with authorities and, pinpoint the location, which is obviously good news. So as much as people will hate Brenner for what he's done and for it taking this long, without Brenner, you wouldn't get this breaking news. So it's good that it's finally come about, but those questions come on in. Why now? Why is Brenner, why has that plea deal been made now? And what do the family think about that? Realistically, I think the family are just pleased and happy that they've been able to find Dylan and bring him home for that closure and everything in the name of the case. Because not only did they get closure, but there's maybe a small chance it'll speed up this case and trial. And that was the final piece of evidence, I guess, truly needed. I guess autopsy will be done, if it hasn't already. I don't know if any information will come out of that publicly, but this should all help, bring it all together as for the fact of justice for Dylan Rounds, which the parents also wanted. They wanted closure, but they also wanted justice too. And with Brenner opening up now, is it because Brenner does feel like the walls are closing in on him and he's got no chance now, or a form of desperation has kicked on in and he's thinking, right, what can I do now to try and better myself for the future and get a reduced sentence, whatever the deal may be? The true details of the plea deal haven't been released publicly. I don't know if there ever will be, but it did happen, hence why Brenner gave something back, because he was given something himself. Now, at least from in the past, plea deals have been talked about, and that's why it's important, because the length of time it's gone on for, obviously factors here and there, such as the LE back then not actually interrogating or questioning Brenner. They only did it at the very beginning and it wasn't that much, and then ever since they didn't do anything, so Brenner wasn't really talking. But if we look at 2023, around March the 3rd, with the whole breaking news coming out there, and on East Idaho News with Candice Cooley, Justin Rounds, with them talking about Brenner being charged with the murder and desecration of Dylan Rounds, in that East Idaho News interview around March 3rd onwards, Candice Cooley said to Nate Eaton, and I think it might have been worded differently later on, so I'll get to that shortly, but Candice Cooley was talking about how Brenner, to his attorney, Brenner, back then in 2023, was willing to, confess and open up and make a deal. So revealed the location of Dylan Rounds' remains, body, the location. Back then, like a year ago or just under a year ago, Brenner was willing to make a plea deal and reveal the location of Round's remains. That never happened. Why did it never happen? Well, at the time, it seemed like it was worded like Candice Cooley, Justin Rounds turned the offer down. They didn't want to make a deal with the devil. They didn't want to disrespect Dylan's name, and they didn't want to make a plea deal because they felt and worried that if it went through, that in the future, Brenner could be released sooner, so then he could get out and then hurt another family out there. And Candice Cooley didn't want that. Justin Rounds didn't want that. So a form of stubbornness, pride, determination kind of slowed things down. They made it harder on themselves. But then fast forward on with the discussions in the background, that regardless of what Candice Cooley, Justin Rounds may have thought at the time, by turning it down, they didn't have the final say, or they didn't have the full rights to issue a plea deal or to bargain with it. It's out of their control. I guess that applies till this day. So with what's happened recently and Brenner willing to open up with that plea deal in exchange for something so he could reveal the location, I mean, what's Candice Cooley, Justin Rounds' thoughts on that? Because if they turned it down back then, or they at least had the attitude of, we don't want it to happen, we don't want a plea deal, how do they feel about this plea deal? Right? What's going on in the background there? They've got other more important things to be thinking about and making the most of, right? But if we're having some valid formal discussions, considering the attitude was a lot more strict back then in 2023, things have changed since. But if it is out of their control, nevertheless, it did happen and it is what it is. But it's just interesting. And I'm just wondering, is there any tools, any factors in the background which have been a bit of a catalyst, which have just suddenly made it happen right now with Brenner? Any additional evidence in the background or any searches taking place? Was it getting to Brenner psychologically? He couldn't hold it in anymore? Because take in mind, for the most part of it, Brenner has had quite a cool presence and straight face, never really showed any emotion, even the following days after the death of Dylan, when the family came on down and Justin was speaking to Brenner, and Brenner was pretty calm, relaxed, didn't really show much, care or worry or anything like that. And even in some of those hearings, what we saw previously, was it arraignments or so, the way he walked on in, stumbled about, whether that was natural or not, he didn't really show too much emotion, really. And that was pretty much it, just cold. And yet now he's decided to open up. Because you would have thought that, well, originally we thought that the longer it goes on for, the less likely Brenner is willing to open up and talk. Other people were saying that Brenner's ill and he's got borrowed time, the time's ticking, and if it expires, then we'll never know. Well, they got that wrong because Brenner did open up and there was time. Candice Cooley did say that Brenner was somewhat healthy, and some other people did who attended some of the hearings previously. So that seemed to be under control. But there must be some underlying factors as to why it's happened now. Obviously, the main feature is Dylan had been found. As for the location of it, they didn't really say, but they said close to the Nevada border or so. We can have a just brief look at it, because even Nate Eaton mentioned it too when he did his video recently. Here we are on the maps, Lucin here, the midpoint. I said satellite imagery had been updated since, right? Grainshed property here, which we've not found out yet whether it plays a role or not now. It may not be as relevant, but remember that added vehicle there seen at the Grainshed property, 2024 imagery supposedly. Interesting, of course. And then zooming on out, Sun Tunnels there. Following it down to Dylan Rounds farm, you see how far away it is, the distance there. 5 mile distance between there and the Grainshed property. And as for the satellite imagery, at least when it was used in the news report, would it be East Idaho News or elsewhere, they didn't give a true marker. Okay, they didn't directly say this is where it was. They didn't say that. Okay, they just said in Lucin, Utah, or it said near to Lucin. So with it to say near to Lucin, or near to Nevada, you'd be thinking, oh, what, over this way where you see that Nevada border line, right? Of course, it is further away, but you never know. I have done map analysis in the past when it came to places of interest. I put markers down, and to be honest, there was a handful of markers over this way. I don't think they'll show up as clearly this time round, but in certain areas there was like some buildings, vegetation. Was it there? Yeah. Which looked like some kind of shed or place of living, RV trailer. Take in mind that nowadays with people adding on, it could well be where people live, okay? But at least early on in the case, when you're looking for buildings, objects, even crates, containers, storage units, it was possible places of concealment. But I think that it still seems to be that Dylan was buried in the ground and was dug up, hence the desecration part. So really looking inside the buildings and even containers would probably be completely pointless nowadays, right? There's some of these areas here which didn't look like it back then because we were looking at 2019 satellite imagery, right? But, you know, you're edging onto the border of Nevada. As you can see, Montello over that way, Lucin over that way. I mean, how far away from Lucin or how far away from the mountainous area? Now, there was one comment by Louise Harway, who I guess watches my channel here and there, that did leave a comment recently in response to Christie. If I'm correct in saying it was in response to where Dylan's body was supposedly found at, Louise said 30 miles away from the farm. Now, no direction was actually given, you know, northeast, southwest, but if we were to apply it here, because like how it was worded in the news article, I mean, what we're looking at, I mean, it is flat, it is open once again. Now, I think the only other time the term may have been loosely used about close to the border, the Nevada border, was in the early days of reporting Dylan last seen in this area. And to be honest, it was probably poorly worded because as we know, Dylan Brown's last seen, well, seen by Chase Venstra on the 25th, which is on Tacoma Road, which does go through Lucin but goes on to Montello, crosses over to Nevada. So there was that, hence why it's near to the border, I guess. That's why they use that term. And then even onwards, the 26th and the 27th of May 2022, at some point in the day, such as in the morning, Dylan being in Montello, coming and going near to the Nevada border, because Montello isn't that far away, so I guess the term can be used, right? That's why we got to acknowledge the loose terms, right? I guess one important factor to note or acknowledge, I believe this is the wash, I know it's the 1000 Creek wash, but you follow it down, it does go into Lucin, as we see here. We got the pond there. I've just got the image flipped for now. We got the wash here, middle of the screen. You see the ridge line. And to be honest, it does go in and out. But if you did follow it, because it does bend round from here, you follow it in and out, if I'm going in the right direction, it does eventually connect on. Oh yeah. I was looking at the wrong one. It was this one because it goes in and out. Yes, I was right. The 1000 Creeks, yeah, 1000 Springs Creek. It goes in and out. It crosses over, or at least goes under the railway tracks. It's like a grid or so. Whether it shows on here, it does. And then it connects back here to the wash, right? So you follow it all the way down 1000 Creek, crosses over once again, and it does Tacoma Valley. It's not too far from the Nevada border. So as for places of interest, if Dylan was to be buried in a wash or just on normal ground level, it could be over here, it could be where Brenner took the authorities, possibly, right? If we do get confirmation or a true location or some kind of coordinates, I can obviously provide a future video just pinpointing it and then truly measuring the distance and just understanding, right? Because obviously the area is vast and big, but you know, quite a few searches have taken place. There's been flyovers, flybys. There have been drones in the area to check for soil disturbance. There's been other people that have come and gone searching about, and only now Dylan's body's been found. Now, Brenner being the one, because Brenner being the one to bury Dylan, and it's lucky, maybe, I don't know if people would agree with that, but it's kind of lucky that Brenner still remembered the exact location, right? He didn't throw him off, he didn't mess about, didn't play games. He went straight to the place and guided authorities there. So it'll be interesting to see what the actual location looks like if we do ever hear about the true area. But if I just wanted to quickly measure the distance as example, might have to rotate the screen for this bit. Zoom on in slightly. There we go. Right, so if I just flip the screen there just for a second, should let me measure. I'm just putting into perspective if Louise was true in what she said. Wind miles. 30 miles from Dylan's trailer. Well, if that was the case, that's in Montello, so that doesn't seem correct. 30 miles over that way, that's near the Great Salt Lake. 30 miles over that way would be Grouse Creek, and way past that point. If it was down there, it would be approaching Wendover, so that doesn't seem correct. As said, whether people have got rumours, like in the past, or whatever, I'm going to be patient. I'm going to wait for the official information, okay? And then we can expand on it from there. But I just wanted to have a look at the area, right? Especially over this way, because maybe at a point it felt neglected, you know? What I can also do, if the location is given in the future, I can see if the spot ties in with any of the locations I labelled in the past as for it needed to be searched, to see whether I was right or I was far off from the location. Take in mind, I did look at a range of different spots. I didn't directly say this is the spot, okay? I know someone like Ty Corbin said this is a high probability area. Then he said, no, this is a high probability area. No, this is a high probability area. Too many high probabilities. It's only going to be one area likely where Dylan's truly buried at because it's one person. And at least from how it's been worded, they found his body, right? Found the skeletal, the skeleton of Dylan. Okay, so decomposition's taken place, right? It mentioned nothing in the news articles or the breaking news about pieces of Dylan being found. Never mentioned that. It never mentioned anything about Dylan being chopped up or his hand found here, his arm found over there. No, his full body was found buried in a spot. So that makes me believe that obviously the bit about Dylan being chopped up was a load of bollocks, okay, from all the people in the past, which is typical, okay? But of course, we'll see what happens next because there could always be twists and turns. You never know. The next thing I wanted to share with you is a poll on my community page. Everybody is welcome to vote on it. Make sure to do so because only 26 people have voted so far. We need a wider range of people to vote so get a better perspective on the situation. About 4 hours ago, I set it up. Hopefully more people vote later on. It was just basically me saying with obviously the breaking news in the Dylan Rounds case and the upcoming video, hence what I'm doing right now. Is there still unfinished business in the case? Are there still things to learn about? Or is it a closed case, done deal now? So far, 62% of people say the case of Dylan Rounds is complete. It's time to move on. 31% say keep covering the Dylan Rounds case. And 8% don't care. Okay? And the reason why I say don't care is because the actual option says, I don't know, I don't care. Okay? So it's neutral. Let's just look at the comments. I don't know if there's any hidden ones. Hopefully there aren't. So, okay. We've got Jamie, first of all. Click there. Now that the story is out there, you can definitely put a video together from start up to now, so like a timeline on everything that's happened in sequence. I'm familiar with the story, but would still watch it, and I think a lot of people would too. So I might take that on board. And I guess with doing the full story, but kind of summarized, it's not as bloated as what other people in the community had made out to be, right? But I think what I'll do, Jamie, I will create possibly a video like that once we have the location of where Dylan Rounds was actually found. So we've got a true start point and an end point. For now, that remains a little bit of a mystery, but maybe soon or later something will come out. Jamie says there's definitely more we can learn about the case, but that will only happen if number one, Brenner talks, which he might be talking right now, it sounds like, and even then I don't know if any details will be released to the media, but somebody can probably dig up court files and find out more. And to be honest, with Brenner doing the biggest transition first in revealing the location, you would think by that point Brenner probably would open up and talk about more things. If he doesn't, it'll be kind of unusual. You thought with the ball rolling already, if that is a saying, and Brenner's done the hardest part. Not that it is difficult to do, but if Brenner is a stubborn individual or he was trying to hold it together, he's finally released. He's finally confessed as for the location, which is obviously helpful towards the family and the case in general. Things can get moving forwards. In the East Idaho News, Nate Eaton said there is a small chance that maybe the court proceedings and what's coming up could be sped up a little bit quicker, depending on how things go. Because at least in the past, Dylan hadn't been found, so things were being delayed and other stuff in the background. But now, you know, with almost all the pieces of the jigsaw coming together now, it's like, well, let's move on with it. Let's push forwards and do the justice part. Hopefully that goes to plan. Is there anything else to highlight here? But yeah, I think Brenner could talk more now. I might even do a poll, whether it be right now or on my channel page. I'll say, considering Brenner has revealed the location of where Dylan was buried at, do you think Brenner will talk more now? Or will he remain silent? Yes, no, maybe. We'll do that shortly. Louise Harway says, the Dylan Rounds case is boring now. His body found, Brenner took cops to where his remains were. Got a plea deal. Done deal. So I think to say that the case is boring now, there's arguments in agreement for that. At least before this, the Dylan Rounds case was far from boring, considering that Warlight Raff was able to single-handedly keep this case alive almost every single day for an entire year. Over 470 videos made on the case and counting. We see what twists and turns come next, if there's any additional information revealed. I personally think that the case is not boring now because remember one key point, Louise. What about the Jubilee truck leaving the Grainshed property after 3 p.m. on the day the 28th when Dylan was murdered? Is there any small chance that that Jubilee truck went into the direction of where Dylan was later found as of recently? Is that a small chance or possibility? It remains a mystery because there's not been any more information about the Jubilee truck as for who was driving it and why did they go to the Grainshed property on that day. And was Brenner aware of that Jubilee truck, considering around the time of when it was leaving the Grainshed property, Brenner was already on his way to Don Hatley's place. So there's that to be taken into perspective. What was it, 3:51 p.m, the final phone ping of Dylan's at the pond area, and it was just after 3 p.m, so about 15 minutes before that when the Jubilee truck was leaving the Grainshed property. So was Brenner anticipating the Jubilee truck to arrive there and say, can you take the body away or can you do something? Was it a temporary visit? Was there a meaning behind it? It's unknown. So I think the Jubilee truck is kind of an important factor. Whether it reinforces the case or it can be debunked. The importance of the Dylan Rounds case, Louise Harway, is whilst it may seem solved now, we still got the court case, we still got the trial with Brenner and trying to get the justice for Dylan. Things can always go wrong, there can always be twists and turns as we've seen previously. If any of the new information, details are added in which could help make us learn about the case better, because as you'll probably know, Louise, when it comes to other communities out there and the dark side, the Jim Terry community, the Bob Farrell, the Twin Mama, certain characters here and there did enable and some constructed BS, lies, misinformation and rumours turned into facts within the case of Dylan Rounds, which did not do much good. And a lot of it faded out with time because there wasn't much substance behind it. But it was a bit of a headache for some people. It did cause confusion, and realistically, at the end of the day, it was a waste of time. So like when it comes to the official news and the official story and the original story, probably best sticking with that. I think there is still unfinished business there because there'll be a few details of what we don't know of, the true location of Dylan Round's body. Okay, that'll be of interest if it's revealed. If it is revealed, the time-lapse footage video, what was shown, how did it look visually, if there's any additional details there. The actual murder weapon that was used within the case of Dylan Rounds, what was it? Was it a firearm? Was it the firearm of Dylan's or not, etc.? What else do we have? I can't think at this moment in time. But I do think there's a range of stuff that can be acknowledged. And as well, of course, let's not forget the 2 new pieces of DNA evidence that were found in 2023 onwards towards the end of the year. That was quite important as well. We don't know most of that. What about Dylan Round's wallet as well? Okay, loose ends that could be tied up with time. It would help the case. And as well, you got to highlight the importance of whether a case is solved completely or not right now. There's no harm in picking up the pieces and debunking the trash which was thrown in along the way. You know, like a clean-up job, so the case isn't tarnished by others out there and that the record can be set straight, so it's a bit clearer for people. And, you know, for future people that do research particular cases, that do research true crime for whatever reason it may be, educational, formal, or just an informal part-time little activity out of interest, researching a case, a story, then learning about the Dylan Rounds case the right way, not the wrong way. So I think there's still a range of different things that can happen. That doesn't mean lots of videos on the Dylan Rounds case. I wouldn't say that, but here and there, if there are updates, official ones, I'll also try and cover it on my channel and try and provide updates too. Of course, it will always be appreciated if, you know, other viewers here and there hear about things, true things, and, you know, acknowledge in a way, kind of like how people did recently in the comment section about Dylan being found. It can all help and go a long way. So I wouldn't say the Dylan Rounds case is boring now, because to be honest, for it to happen now, for Brenner to open up now, there must be something that's going on in the background or previously happened for Brenner to open up, right? Because as we said, the longer things go on for, the less likely Brenner is willing to open up and confess. Yet he did now. So what has happened recently? That sparks its own interest and intrigue. And the possibilities of, if Brenner has already opened up, now what could he do next? What could he say next, right? Because you think about all the other wretched humans and the disease-ridden communities out there who were really pushing it, saying how Brenner wasn't responsible at all, that he's an innocent, sweet individual. He's a fall guy. That's all it is. Well, look how things gone since, right? So it'll be interesting to see what Brenner has to say next, or at least what the court has to say in the trials, depending on how long that takes, okay? Unfinished business. Maybe it's not all of my business, out of my control, but when things are mentioned publicly, I'll try and spread awareness on those things with the case, just for that clarity, and so it's under control. Christy down below, shout out to Christy, says, I would love you to keep covering the Dylan Rounds case because I want to know what happened to Dylan and why. I also would like to see a map analysis of the place where he was found. Thank you. Now, Louise said Dylan was found 30 miles from his trailer. Now, At least from the East Idaho News article that I read, it never mentioned 30 miles from his trailer and some of the videos that I've watched in the background. But depends. There are a range of different news articles, so it may have mentioned it, but I'll wait. I'll wait for true confirmation. I'll wait for for a bit more consistency. If more people start talking about it and more news articles, then I'll look into it. Okay? And it is true what Christie says about, what happened to Dylan, such as how did he die? What was used on him? Has that murder weapon, if possible, has that been found by itself? I wonder. How does this tie in with Don Hatley? Unfinished business there or not? Linked or not? There's still a lot of questions. And as I said on the Facebook page, the family have a lot of questions at this moment in time. So clearly, unfinished business. Okay? But as for the closure part, that has been a success, which is a good thing. One important factor to highlight is during the build-up of this unexpected breaking news, it went the right way. Because in the presence of the community and just in general, the case was very quiet, silent, peace and quiet, not disruptive, not volatile, not toxic. It was under control on my channel, in my community, fine there, and just in general, it was quite cool and calm before the storm, before the breaking news, probably the best way it came about, right? Now, onwards, depending on how long, there could be the resurgence of some out there, but it is what it is. At least the official news came out first before all the other wretched individuals did. So that's a positive there. But one thing I want to reflect back on, because it's kind of like finishing what one started, in terms of the order of how we've done things today. We looked at the beginning, the Facebook page that was first created in the first place to do with the Dylan Brown's case awareness and, a place where people can gather, share their thoughts, prayers, but also the key information on the case. We started with that. And then we transitioned on to the official news crews and articles and people involved in the media, such as East Idaho News' Nate Eaton, that conducted some of the first early news interviews with Candice Cooley, Justin Rounds, very critical, open-ended questions, stable control, maintaining focus, and the supposed facts as well. Did a good job there, Nate Eaton as well. And then we transitioned on to the more abstract open-endedness of the community and certain discussions there, just in brief, of course. I thought there was no point looking back at previous comments because all that would be is lots of people saying Dylan's been found, etc. But if there's any additional discussions people want to add on here, genuine comments, leave them down below under this video. As said, whilst others may have covered this case already, such as the breaking news, I've done it now because I couldn't yesterday. I was asleep because of time zone. And if I might as well finish what I started, okay? If I've started covering the Dylan Brown's case back then, I should be able and have the chance to at least clear up what's happened now. Is it completely done, this case? No. This is the thing you got to acknowledge, because there'll be a few impetuous humans out there. The search for Dylan has come to an end in a positive way, being able to recover the closure and everything. But in terms of the Dylan Rounds case, the case is just the beginning, right? Because it's not even reached trial yet. You look at the Brian Koberger Idaho 4 case, how that's still ongoing, okay? But the supposed killer has been taken in back then, and that evidence has been collected along the way. But in terms of the trial there and the things going underway, it's still a bit slowed down, dragged out, delayed, etc. It's not reached ahead. There hasn't been true justice met yet. It's ongoing. And you look at Brenner, that's not even begun yet, okay, in terms of the specific trial. But in terms of what to expect next, because the final piece of the jigsaw supposedly has been collected, the main one, the one, which is Dylan's body. Then follow it through with the autopsy report, depending what that gives off, whether it gives off the cause of death or what was used on Dylan, and if it has any traces of the person responsible, such as Brenner, if it's got any twists and turns, such as anyone else handling Dylan's body, etc. Whatever comes from the autopsy report, that can be of great wealth and information and can assist in the case and the key piece of the jigsaw to fulfill, I guess, that evidence within the case against Brenner. Let's put it that way. It might, as said by Nate Eaton, speed things up now, okay? Back then, you didn't really have a bargaining chip because things were still ongoing, pending, and not found. Dylan has been found now, and most of it has. I don't know if there's any tiny little bits of evidence out there that could still be randomly scattered about. I mean, let's acknowledge one thing, at least for the bin bags, the trash bags from Grangeshed property, June 2nd, spring cleaning 2022 onwards, when they were disposed of by Brenner and supposedly Don Hartley. Were they ever found? I don't think so. But maybe they don't need to be found now, considering Dylan has been found. That's the most important thing, most important person, right? But who knows what will show up in the future? Who knows what will come out within the court case, the trial with Brenner? If there's any shocking twists, turns, if it reinforces any alternative points and stories which people have mentioned in the background, or if it completely dispels it, okay? We'll see what happens. Is there anything else to add on? I don't think so at this moment in time. Hopefully people understood this video, the purpose behind it. If there is a true location given of Dylan's body, I'll do a map analysis of it. I'll put it into perspective. As for video ideas on the Dylan Rounds case, I think I only had one or two others. They were kind of loose, okay? I think what I will do, my loose videos, discussions and theories can come next, providing there are official updates and reports that follow soon. If not, I might not do it, okay? Because some of the discussions and themes will link on already to what I'm thinking of. So, for example, the location of Dylan's body, if that is revealed, truly, I will use that. I will make a map analysis of it and I'll put it into comparison on the day Dylan was murdered and the Jubilee truck sighting leaving the Grangeshed property to see if that Jubilee truck followed the direction and pathway, if possible, in the spot and area where Dylan was disposed of, right? That's how I can compare that or contrast, okay? The next one would be if there is ever an autopsy report of Dylan and it is shown, not photos like some of the YouTube channels out there did with some other cases, but if it's just like a report of bullet points, trauma to the head, hole in the chest, you know, things like that, fractured bone, wrist or something, DNA evidence belonging to this named individual. If any of that did come out in recent time, probably a big ask, but if it did and it was genuine, I could link that with the discussion of reinforcing or debunking the time-lapse footage of Brenner in the trailer 7:27 a.m. on the 28th of May 2022, cleaning a gun with DNA from Dylan on his shirt and a lot of blood too. Was what Brenner was cleaning there the murder weapon used on the day of Dylan's death? Well, the autopsy report may reinforce it or it may debunk it. At this moment in time, that hasn't come out yet, at least of me recording this video, hence why I'm not going to jump ahead just yet, okay? Those videos, though, I would have done beforehand if it wasn't for this breaking news, but because it has come out now, let's put some things on hold until there's a bit more formal procedures onwards with information and developments, okay? Got to maintain that stability, of course. Now, with the Kenny Veach case, I mean, with the Dylan Rounds one at this moment in time, it's like a checklist, right? I mean, let's be honest, let's be realistic. In this very short space of time, there's been people found left, right, and centre, identities confirmed left, right, centre. You had Lucin Wetlands, a person called Elijah, 42 years of age, found at Willard Bay, identified, confirmed. Never treated as a missing person or reported as a missing person in the first place, bit suspicious, but their body was found and identified. So that happened just recently, the wetlands of Lucin. Unrelated to the Dylan Rounds case, as said. Then you had Hobo Shoestring, YouTuber from Tennessee, body found at Boone Lake, identified to be him. That was sorted in a short space of time. Unfortunate outcome, but it was breaking news. And now just recently, Dylan's body found. Just like that. It's been pretty busy back to back, although not all in the same areas. As for the cases I've participated in recent time, definitely been ticking things off the list and tying up loose ends, which is important because whilst you can go about and cover multiple cases, it might be of interest to some people. it just creates a lot of empty spaces and unanswered questions and outcomes. And you might not always return back to provide updates because you've covered so many cases, you don't know where they're all at or trying to locate them all, right? So by just covering a few here and there and maintaining that focus for a certain length of time, a bit more organization behind it and stability and more control. So that's all good there. What it does enable me to do now is divert my attention or focus more so on Kenny Veach, tie up loose ends there, get some video ideas out there. And if one does hit a bit of a brick wall, I can always take in mind the backpackers, 2 females that went missing in that jungle in a foreign country. Hitchhiking, more like backpacking, backpackers, explorers. I can take that into consideration. Of course, this is the reality. It's a dark reality, but it's the truth. Whether it's true crime, mysteries, missing people, there will always be missing people in this world in different countries. There will always be a case, a cold one, an ongoing one. Okay? So there's never a dry moment. As bad as that sounds, it is what it is. Okay? But as I said, I mainly cover cases I'm actually interested in. Because if I'm not interested, I'm probably not going to deliver as well. And there needs to be quality behind these formal, important videos. Of course, other people out there in the YouTube streets and just YouTube in general, the bandwagons, do have lower standards, but my standards are a little bit higher here, or at least try to, okay? So I appreciate all the people that have remained from the beginning of this case, and even before that, who have stuck around and watched till this day. Okay, I wouldn't say we're completely done here with the Dylan Rounds case, but we can at least reach a checkpoint of stability and some kind of conclusion to a key area within the case, a missing jigsaw puzzle fixed. Okay, so appreciate people's patience for watching this video, and I'll see you next time, whenever or whatever that's about. Thanks for watching. Goodbye. Good night for now.